adjust my levels here a little bit. At Brother Seamus Show on TikTok and YouTube. Please give me a follow if you are so inclined. I'm almost to the magical level of 1,000 followers on TikTok. So I've heard things will happen when that happens, good things. They tell me I'll be instantly famous. And I'm sure that that's true. Why would social media ever lie? You know what I mean? Why would social media ever lie to anyone for any reason? How could it be that they would lie? I'm going to go get another cup of coffee. You all settle in. This is the Brother Seamus Show. It's kind of meant to be listened to late at night while you're trying to fall asleep. And let me give you a 20-second slide here. Slide to the left. We got us a 20-second slide there, people. There's a poll up. Which Democratic nation is best at voting? Nobody's ever responded to this poll, ever. I'm going to leave it up for 90 minutes, although I may not be on the air for 90 minutes. But please take the poll if you're interested. The sounds you're hearing, the sound you are hearing is Dronescape number 8 by Zud. Zud can be frequently heard on this television program. I like to pretend we're on cable access TV. I don't know how y'all feel over there on the TikToks, but and on the YouTubes. Hit me up with your questions if you have any. Don't feel obligated. Don't feel obligated to respond, but we're going to keep it chill. We're going to keep it cool. You can call 509-676-6032, and there's a 60-40 chance that I'll be able to pick up your phone call like never before. Like never before. Let me just double check and make sure all my settings are right on the phone. I hope to have a landline. I want to get a landline put back in, and I don't know what happened to my, there's my menu. So someday you'll call me and I'll have an actual, I think I'm going to go backwards to a cassette.
Hey, Road Commissioner, I just want to thank you.
Cassette answering machine is one of my goals. I'm going back in time. All right, we've got everything through the speakers on the phone system, and let's hear what Cliff has to say. Hey, Cliff. Good to hear from you, buddy.
For the service that you're doing for free on the internet. We've got a lot of guys out on the road right now clearing all the ice and snow so people can get home safely. And the free entertainment and spiritual guidance that you're providing the citizens of Kent County is greatly appreciated. Thank you for drawing some recognition to all of that. And just want to let you know your YouTube signal is working correctly. And
well, thank you, Cliff.
Receiving it loud and clear. So
thank you for calling.
God bless you, boys.
I just noticed my audio is very low. I got to raise my audio. And I'm going to raise it to 12. 10, 12 ought to do it. This is the Brother Seamus Show. Let me see if I can put an interesting video on the screen for you. We'll do the Zud Dronescape video for the moment. Let's see how that looks. Oh, that looks nice. That looks real nice. That looks real nice. If you feel like calling and asking a question, I'll attempt to engage in a competent manner. You can also write your little ideas over in the comments section on YouTube and TikTok. But I'm going to go grab some coffee, so don't go away. We'll be right back on the Brother Seamus Show. Welcome to the Brother Seamus Show. Stay tuned, everybody. We'll be right back. If I lost my YouTube feed. We're still doing good. Oh, somebody said science doesn't matter. I hope you're not serious, sir, or madam, as the case may be. I hope you're not serious. Science does. We could make a song out of it, though, right? Science doesn't matter. Science doesn't matter. Ooh. Science doesn't matter. Ah! Science doesn't matter. Hee hee. All right, hang on. Matter doesn't science. That's probably true. All right, for future reference, my desktop audio, which is Zonescape, which the people in the studio can't hear, but I can hear in my headset, is set to 30. It's set to 30. I assume that's a negative 30. And my vocal mic is set at plus 12, just to give my future self some information that will be vital. And I'm keeping the echo knob turned all the way down because it creates noise. It creates noise. Echo knob. Echo. Well, that sounds pretty good. I'm hearing it coming out of somebody's phone in the room. So we're getting a double echo. Double echo. Double echo. Science does matter. Abortion does save women. User 912-757-918-1784. It does save women. And there's all kinds of evidence for it. All kinds of evidence. When a woman's having a miscarriage, she needs an abortion if it doesn't work right, which doesn't happen a lot. A lot of people will say, oh, you don't need to save women. It only happens 1.4% of the time. That's still thousands of women a year will die if they're denied emergency miscarriage treatment. So it's true. These are true facts. And, user 912-757-918-784 saying things like, come on now, kind of condescending. Just want to let you know. A little bit condescending there. Come on now. So you think every woman that has a miscarriage gets through the miscarriage successfully without any problems, is what you would be expecting us to believe. Now they'll claim, let's be clear, the powers that be will claim that if the woman's life is at risk, that they can get the necessary procedure, which is called a D&C. But that's not true, because they're so unclear about where the line is between knowing when it's legal to give an abortion, and they also threaten these doctors. Let's take Georgia, for example. They threaten those doctors with, in Georgia, I think it's like 10, 12, 13 years in prison. If you're later found to have given an abortion that wasn't totally necessary in the eyes of the state prosecutor, they could throw you in jail. In Texas, it's 99 years in prison. So guess what happens? The doctors get scared and they don't provide the abortion. And then they wait. They make people wait. They make women wait, and then they end up dying. I know a lot of people they don't want to believe that's true. Unfortunately, it is. It is true. No, I'm just doing that. I mean, be mindful. But I want to... Okay, people. Let's see what we got here. We got any more fresh comments on the Brother Seamus Show? You can call us. That's the best way to do it. Call I keep saying call us like there's somebody else here. Actually, there are several people here, but probably the other people here probably won't be answering the questions. Let me turn this Zud Dronescape up a little. Zud is a frequent contributor to the show. So my point is, give us a call and we can talk about things in a more nuanced way, right? Let's talk about things in a more nuanced way. Part of what social media has stolen from us is really the art of conversation in person. That's one of the things it's stolen. So, I know it's upsetting, and for those of you who don't keep up with abortion, the thing that's so striking right now is that these anti-abortion folks have been after getting these laws changed forever. Since before I was born, they've been trying to do this, and they pretty much have succeeded in a variety of states. As soon as Donald Trump made his selections for the Supreme Court, the die was cast at that point. The die was cast. So it is certainly something that, how did I stop that? I did not mean to stop that. It is certainly something that Trump has caused, and I know that gives a lot of people an uncomfortable feeling. They don't want to believe that Donald Trump would be responsible for causing a change. These three Supreme Court justices he appointed got rid of Roe versus Wade, which was the national protection for abortion for women. And he will try to wriggle out of this and say, well, I gave it back to the states. It's like, yeah, but you knew what the states were going to do. We all knew what the states were going to do. And they're doing it. They're doing it. They're unaliving women through malicious neglect, is what I would call it. Malicious neglect, where you threaten doctors, right? See, that's one of the key components to this is the threatening of doctors. So you threaten the doctors, right? And there's still a chance that the state would not accuse the doctor of a crime that could put him or her in jail for decades. But you don't know as a physician. That's what they're counting on, is you not knowing, right? You hope they won't prosecute you, but you don't know that they won't prosecute you. So instead, what do? Well, you try to buy yourself some time, and you delay until the woman is so sick that you feel like then you have the right to say, oh, her life's in danger. But in the cases that are showing up now, and there will be more, sadly, there'll be hundreds, if not more, young women who die because they delayed. That's the common thread running through all these stories, is the delay. Delay, delay, delay. Nevaeh Crane in Texas, I believe, died. She went to the emergency room. They said she had strep throat. They sent her home, ignoring her abdominal pain. She went back to the emergency room. They sent her home again. She was already, I believe, spiking a temperature, and I think her blood pressure was way off, and they sent her home, and then she went back a third time, and she died. They made her wait for 2 ultrasounds. 2. That, I believe, is almost exactly what cruel and unusual punishment is. They violated her constitutional rights, you see, by claiming that a fetus has constitutional rights. And the part that to me is the most upsetting is that science is pretty clear. This is why you need science. Science is pretty clear that nobody's home. Yes, it appears that fetuses are responding to stimuli, sounds, voices, and touch, but there's no main processing happening in the brain. They're what they call thalamocortical connections, and those connections don't even begin until after 6 months of gestation. So you're dealing with it's an airplane without a pilot. But unfortunately for us, we tend to anthropomorphize. We anthropomorphize the fetus. And we start giving it names, and we decide, I think people project their own personality ideas onto the fetus, but there's no conscious thought happening yet. There's no self. And if you think about it, on the other side of life, or if somebody has a horrible traumatic brain injury, and let's say they are never going to be conscious again. We used to, back in the day, call it being a vegetable, which is kind of harsh, but it also kind of captures the feeling. So the idea, and it still pretty much holds today, is most of us would agree that when your consciousness is gone, you're just a body. Some people will even say you're just a husk or a shell. And I don't think it's that simple with fetuses. They're becoming a person. They're almost a person. But until there's someone in there to process those signals, you're just seeing nerve impulses. And the brain is growing, to be sure, but the part of the brain that has to be there for a conscious being, it's going to take a lot more development. And I think it just begins at the 6th and 7th month, and it goes until the 8th or 9th, and then they argue about different levels of consciousness even after somebody's born. Now, I'm not saying that there's not a gray area, because of course there's a gray area. And one of the biggest tricks that the anti-abortionists want to use on you, they want to use this trick on all of us, is they want you to believe there's a simple answer. They want to pretend there's a simple answer. There's no simple answer to this. There's just no simple answer. That's not how life works. So does life begin at conception? Somebody made the point earlier thinking, oh, how could anybody think that life doesn't begin? Oh, we'll come back to your question, Librard. It's a good question. Who can't get an abortion if the mother's life is in danger? We'll come back to that in a second. I'm going to show you pictures and names of people who died because they were having a miscarriage. Two women died in Georgia. No, these are just known deaths, by the way. I want to stress that. These are known deaths. There are certainly people dying in other states, and I'm going to show you the map in a minute. There's certainly people dying in other states that we don't know about. So 2 in Texas, 2 in Georgia, and there's one more, and I think I can't remember if she's in Texas or Georgia. But the problem is there are multiple states that now have, back in the day, we used to call them trigger laws, which meant if Roe v. Wade was ever taken away, certain states had laws on the books because the Roe versus Wade overrode state law. Just as if, let's say, the Trump administration tries to push an abortion ban, which they will almost certainly try, that would override any state, even state constitutions who have said that you have the right to abortion. But I think if it came to that, that's a whole different broadcast. I think people would flip out at that point. And more women would die. More women would die in that case. But they're already dying, to answer your question. So this idea, see you later, Bill. Thanks for the TV. It's a TV man. Well, look at that oscillating color I've got going. I didn't even mean to do that. That was quite an accident here in the studio. This is the Brother Seamus Studios here. We're coming at you live on a Saturday. We're coming at you live from Walla Walla, Washington, and I hope you're having a lovely night. We had a little bit of snow up here. It was cold. Now it's seems like it's warming up a little, at least to me. It's astonishing to me, a white man in his 50s, to see people who claim to believe in freedom to allow state legislators to go into the hospital emergency rooms and say to the doctors, if you give that woman treatment, you will go to prison. I don't know if they thought it through. I don't know. I think some of the anti-abortionists didn't think it through, and I think some of them knew exactly what would happen. And I think underneath it all in the anti-abortion movement, the people that are really opposed to abortion, I think there are two different kinds of people. One kind of person genuinely believes that the minute the sperm enters an egg, that it's a person. It's a baby. We should give them a name and give them all their legal rights. Now, it's a microscopic organism at that point. It doesn't have a body and doesn't have a brain at all. So you tell me how that's a person. But some people believe it, and I get it. I was raised that way too. Some people believe, instant baby. It still raises the question, why is the mother's life not worth as much? Because that's what these laws have done now. They've said, no, you can't abort that baby if there's any chance that it could live, or really, that's not even the case. You can't abort that baby is the law in Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Idaho, Oklahoma, Mississippi, I believe West Virginia, one of the Dakotas, South Dakota probably. So why a zygote, or as it's known for the first 10 days, blastocyst? Why a blastocyst gets so much power is beyond me. But there are some people that really believe it. They really believe that's a person. Okay. And then there are other people in the anti-abortion movement who, it seems to me, as a psychologist of 30 years, it seems to me they really want to hurt women. They want to control at the very least. And I think some of them have bloodlust. I don't think they'll admit it. But I think the most angry people, it's usually men, the most angry men who are wanting to control women's bodies, even when it's a spontaneous miscarriage, even when the miscarriage, like Nevaeh Crane, was not trying to lose her pregnancy. Her body gave up on the pregnancy. And oftentimes that process can go off without a hitch, and sometimes it goes awry. And maybe we'll play conservative politics here, 1% to 2% of women who have complicated miscarriages is going to need an abortion. She's going to need an abortion to stay alive, because all the abortion is a procedure where they clean out her uterus so that she'll stop bleeding and the uterus can close. And it prevents infection, I think, also. If you're an OBGYN, put some comments in there and tell me if I'm way off base here. That's my rudimentary understanding of what a DNC is. It's a procedure to help a woman finish a miscarriage if it doesn't finish itself. Many people have commented, and they're correct, that miscarriages can be fine. I'm guessing 90% of the time they're fine on their own. the pregnancy terminates itself, or if you want to think of it that way, or Mother Nature terminates the pregnancy. But sometimes they need a DNC. And there are other medications and other procedures, but they're all kind of considered abortions. And the state of Georgia said to Amber Thurman, no DNC for you, because that's an abortion. And if you give that woman an abortion, the state said to the doctors and to the hospital corporations, if you give her an abortion, you might go to jail. And then they would say, well, what about the exception of, that her life is at risk? Well, is her life at risk? When is her life at risk? Is there still a fetal heartbeat? They want to confirm that the fetus has already lost its heartbeat. And while they're waiting, Amber ends up dying, and so did Candace, and so did Nevaeh, and so did Portia, and so did Joselee. And that happened a couple years ago. We're just now finding out about it. And you can bet your bippy, ladies and gentlemen, as my dad used to say, you can bet your bippy those state politicians and those governors, a.k.a. Brian Kemp, Greg Abbott, Kay Ivey, they're not going to want you to know that the women were dying because the hospitals refused the standard of care. Keep that in your head, too. I don't know if you're familiar with that. You have to provide the standard of care as a hospital. You're supposed to provide the standard of care, or it opens you up to malpractice. But the state got in the way, and they said, well, we might throw you doctors in jail. We might throw you doctors in jail because we've made abortion illegal, and you just gave that woman an abortion. Well, she was having a miscarriage, and she might have died if we didn't do it. Well, can you prove that she might have died? Well, okay, we'll wait a really long time until she's really, really sick and that her vital organs start shutting down, and then we'll panic and we'll do radical surgery and try to save her. But it will be too late in some cases. So I hope doctors link arms. I think physicians around the country, OBGYNs and emergency physicians or midwives or whoever's going to be targeted by the state, y'all need a legal defense fund. I don't know what to tell you your business, but you need a legal defense fund that helps you with, covers all of your legal expenses if you get prosecuted. And we could start to get some attorneys who really know how to argue these cases to show that the state has enacted an unconstitutional law that unfairly targets pregnant women who might have a miscarriage, a complicated miscarriage. Y'all need a legal defense fund that covers your attorneys and lost wages. If you do get it, what if you get incarcerated? What's your family going to do without your income? So if I were a physician, I'd be organizing that right now. If I were a Politico, let's say I was on Brian Kemp's team or Greg Abbott's team, I would say, are you fucking stupid? Are you really going to get behind a law that kills young American women, otherwise healthy young American women? Are you fucking stupid? Who are you people? You think that's a good look for Brian Kemp? Yeah, I just, when a woman comes to the emergency room, I like the state to tell her no. I like my state's attorneys, like the jackal in Texas. I forgot his name. It's Ken something. Ken Paxton, I think. Oh, Ken. Ken loves to go after women. It's a real good look for you, Ken. Real good look. You look like a guy that really likes to hurt women. That's how you're coming across. I don't know if that's what you intended. And I think you kind of did. Now, for those of you who don't know Ken Paxton, the state of Texas district or attorney general, he's in a lot of trouble himself. He's got some legal issues, which I don't know exactly what's going on, but I feel like there's a fraud situation happening there for old Kenny P. Kenny P's in some trouble. He may have resolved it, or he may have just suppressed it for a minute, kind of like Donnie T. Donnie T and Kenny P, they've got charges against them. They're always up to some crime I think. Kenny P and Donnie T, they like a little crime on the side, you know? Anyway, I lost my point, which I frequently do. It's not a big deal. It'll turn up. I think what I'm getting at is, holy shit, really? If you're a doctor, you need a legal defense fund, and you physicians have an oath. You can't be shoving these young women back into the waiting room. That doesn't meet the ethical requirements of your Hippocratic oath. And I'm not saying I would want to face prison either as a psychologist. It would give me pause. But this aggression cannot stand. This is just flat out obviously fatal for at least 5 young women that we know about. And I think there were a couple more in Idaho. But the point is this, that aggression cannot stand. It cannot stand. It cannot stand. We all need to do something about it. So for regular people, what can you do to deal with this abortion threat? And I drew up a little list here. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see if I can find a little list here. It's in here somewhere, people. These are just ideas, things you can do if you want to help women. And I encourage all men to get into this game, because you know what? Well, like I just said, this aggression cannot stand against women. It's ridiculous. And sometimes I make this argument, and sometimes it sounds good, and other times it sounds bad. But not bad, but it doesn't always seem compelling. It's better for men, too. It's better for men also to live in a society that has genuine equity, if we want to say it that way. It's good for men to help women have the exact same human rights, because they're humans too. Men aren't better. There's no inherent greater value for men. Some people claim that on religious grounds, but if you're an atheist like your brother Seamus here, atheist street preacher, you know that's nonsense. You know that's nonsense. So how is it better for men? A lot of men would say, well, we should have power, more power, because men are more awesome, and it said so in the Bible or whatever. The way it's better is because then women you care about don't get treated like shit. Do you want your daughter, who's maybe she got pregnant accidentally, she went away to college and she was doing her birth control, but it didn't work, because it doesn't always work, and she got pregnant and she's not ready to have the baby and she can't afford it, and it'll be she's not emotionally mature enough to have the baby? And there's no consciousness, at least well into the 7th or 8th month, 9th month. And then she goes to the emergency room, and she's having a spontaneous miscarriage for any number of reasons. About 1 out of 8, 1 out of 10 women will have spontaneous miscarriages. I'm no expert, but from what I've read, it could be almost anything that causes it, and they often don't know what causes it. It might be blood pressure. It might be you don't weigh enough. It might be you weigh too much. It might be that you, or I don't know, are a long distance runner. Things happen. There's a reason Mother Nature gives women so many ovum, right? I think you're born with like 300,000 eggs, and even by the time you're in your mid-30s, you've still got like 30,000 eggs. Because Mother Nature knows that pregnancy is dicey business, right? It's dicey business. So would you want your daughter? This is how it's better for men. Would you want a woman you care about to be told, nope, you're having a miscarriage and we know you need a D&C, but that's an abortion as far as the law is concerned? Would you want your daughter to be told, go home? And then she dies. There's, oh, sorry. I hope I didn't spoil Wordle. That was Wordle from the other day. Let's see, let's put this over here. So here are a few things that we can do for us regular folks. You OBGYN folks, you gotta call a meeting. I'm sure you already have. You don't want to be walking around like this with targets on your head, because basically a religious belief has worked its way into the law. And for years and years and years, the anti-abortion movement has been trying to get anyone who will listen to hear the phrase, abortion kills babies. That's been their phrase forever and ever and ever. It's a pernicious lie. It's a pernicious lie. It's dangerous to all of us because it endangers the lives of living, fully developed, young human women who are then told that because the law has taken a religious position and that the minute the sperm enters the egg, it's a fully grown baby, that the law has made this ridiculous, dangerous declaration, then the young woman like Nevaeh, 18, who wanted to have a family, who was looking forward to having a baby someday, was suddenly struck with a miscarriage, and they said, nope, no care for you. Your life is not, what has happened now is in that very specific situation. And some of you are going to complain and say, well, it's not that many. It doesn't happen very often. But it happens, doesn't it? How many is too many? How many women can we let die in the emergency room before it's too many? I'd say 0. Or 1. 1 is too many. So there's a lot of ways that you can rationalize and try to cop out of this genocide that we're engaging in. It's a quiet genocide, right? Brian Kemp likes to keep his genocides nice and quiet. Still a genocide, though. I think most humans have had it with genocide. I think the vast majority of people, I shouldn't laugh, but I mean, it's almost like we're finally realizing that maybe we shouldn't kill each other to make our point. So how do you help prevent death by miscarriage? One is donate to nonprofits that help pregnant women. I specifically did not mention any nonprofits that help pregnant women because I want you to decide for yourself. But I will say this. Your safest choice is Planned Parenthood. Now, I don't work for them. They're not paying me to say this. There are many nonprofits that disguise themselves as protectors of women, but what they are is secretly as religious organizations. So do your homework. Also, if you live in Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Idaho, Iowa, if you live in any of those states, call your governor and say, hey, you know what, I'm anti-abortion, but I don't want women to die in the emergency room. You need to clarify when a doctor can do his or her job. And you have to stop threatening them with prison. The doctor, at the very least, if you're going to ban abortion, can you at least keep women alive who have no control over what their body's doing at that moment? And I think that's something that whether you disagree with my position on abortion or not, you should at least agree that nobody should bleed out or die of sepsis. And that's what they're dying of, people. They're dying of, sounds like once it gets beyond a certain point, a whole bunch of bad stuff happens, and it happens real fast. Another argument is, why don't these women just go somewhere else? That was one dude, of course it was a dude that's very casually said, well, if they're not being given the treatment they need, that's malpractice, and they should just go somewhere else. And it's like, well, yeah, but they don't have time. Nevaeh died in about 20 hours, and pretty much in one day. Horrifyingly, I think it was actually the day of a shower. I think somebody was giving her a baby shower. I might have that detail wrong, but we'll check here in a second. Another way you can help is to offer direct assistance. Now, there's no one way to do this, and it could be tricky, but can you provide rides? Can you provide lodging? Can you provide some cash? I think the going rate for an abortion right now is about $500. So maybe just, you'd have to find some informal networks to figure that one out, and that's more for your adventurers. Number 3 is that's more for your adventurous crowd. Now, number 4, stop anthropomorphizing feti, which is an acceptable plural form of fetus, but most people just say fetuses. So we have to stop anthropomorphizing, which just means until there's a consciousness in there that can process what's happening, we probably shouldn't be calling the fetus by names and saying, oh, look, she likes this, or he likes that, or they don't like this, or that. Of course, they're going to react to things. They're hearing sounds and they're feeling things, but there's nobody in the command module. That's my whole argument. That's the whole Brother Seamus argument, is until somebody's in the command module, people, I don't want to hear this lie, this pernicious lie that you're killing a baby. There's no baby in there. There's gonna be. Just the same way an apple seed will eventually become an apple. There's no one magic moment it becomes an apple. That's why people cling. That's why the anti-abortionists and most of the people I grew up with cling to the idea that, well, as soon as all the DNA's there, that settles it. And it's like, no, that doesn't settle it. If I get my pinky chopped off, in a thresher, that's got all my DNA in it. Does that mean I have to go after my pinky and give it a burial? DNA doesn't, it's in your blood, it's in everything, it's in your spit. That doesn't make you a person. Are you capable of processing information as a unique self? I'm not saying you have to be completely 1,000% fully conscious. But if there's no connection, apparently, between the thalamus and the cortex, if there's no connection there, then there's nobody there. And I know people don't like that because we really want to anthropomorphize. We want to anthropomorphize the fetus, which just means you give human characteristics to it. And no doubt, it's tricky. It's becoming a human. There's a nuance. There's a balance there. But once again, whose life? There's a fully grown human woman in need of a miscarriage. And the state politician is going to go into the emergency room metaphorically speaking, and say, nope, sorry, you can't have an abortion because the undeveloped fetus in your uterus, which is now killing you slowly over a period of 1 to 3 days, that fetus is more important to us than you are. And if you die in the transaction, so be it. So I want to know who on these state governments is going to stand behind this when, here's the thing, these women died shortly after Roe versus Wade was shot down by Trump's appointees. This is Donald Trump's fault. He did this. He's going to disavow knowledge, especially as the deaths of these women, if it's, it starts to become more clear. Right now they're suppressing it. One of the first things Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia did was he fired the board or the committee that reviews these deaths. He fired them because he didn't like what they found. And they probably don't even have these review boards in some states, or they're on they're muzzled in some political way. But it doesn't matter because these women are real. They have first names, they have last names. They're real people. They have families. For those of you that think if you think I'm blowing some hot air at you, just go to, there's a link in the YouTube. I don't think I can put a link on the TikTok, or at least I haven't figured out how to do it, but you can read about the 5 cases that I'm referring to on ProPublica.org, and I'm going to show you some images from those articles here in a second. It's 2024, and we've gone backwards in science because we've decided to let religion make medical decisions. I really think that's a bad idea, people. Even if you're religious, I'm a atheist street preacher, so I'm not religious at all, but even the religious people, I think you need to think about this. What you're doing right now to these young women, many of whom agree with you. That's the irony. I believe Nevaeh Crane from Texas, who died, was 18. It was her first pregnancy. She was excited. Abortion does save people's lives. It would have saved Nevaeh's life. She needed a DNC. She didn't get it, and she died. And the irony is, I think she was a young Christian woman who thought abortion was wrong, or at least wrong for her. I don't know that for certain. But you can go to ProPublica and read all about it. BC 30. Welcome to the TikTok feed. Abortion saves women from death by miscarriage. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. And I know a lot of people don't like it. It's upsetting. If you want to talk about it in a nice, calm way, because that's how we do it here on the Brother Seamus Show. We keep it nice and calm. 509-676-6032. Of course, sometimes we all get upset. Abortion is a particularly difficult topic to discuss because I think people have such a strong reaction to the idea that it's a baby. And I know it sounds harsh, but I don't mean it to be harsh. I'm saying simply, if there is no consciousness, if there is no conscious mind to process the information that's coming in, it's an airplane without a pilot. And we kind of see that on the other end of life. Like if your pep has a massive stroke, which would be terrible, but let's say, or your meemaw, something happens and her conscious mind is gone, but her body's, her heart's still beating. They can keep her alive. That's not meemaw anymore. That's not pep anymore. And the same is true on the other end. And I think we force women to walk around with some sense of shame when really they should feel no shame whatsoever. There's a reason Mother Nature gives you hundreds of thousands of ovum. Because Mother Nature is just trying to reproduce. She's like, just reproduce. Monty Python had a song. I forget what movie it was from. Every sperm is sacred. And it takes this idea that the presence or absence of DNA connotes personhood. In other words, one of the arguments is from the far right anti-abortionists is that the minute the sperm enters the egg, it's life. And it's like, well, the sperm was already alive, and so was the egg. They both were alive already. Life was already there. The word life gets used to trick people. So the question is, what kind of life? What degree of life? Is it microscopic life? Is microscopic life the same as a person or a baby? And of course, words fail us. Words will always fail us because, was it William S. Burroughs that said words are a virus from outer space? I think he was on to something. So my point is, the anti-abortion movement has been lying to all of us for more than 50 years, I think. And the lie is that it's a baby, that the sperm enters the egg and it's instantly a baby. And they'll be like, well, life has just begun. Well, the sperm was alive, and that's why Monty Python gave us a wonderful song about how every sperm is sacred. So if you kill sperm, you're killing life. And a fertilized egg and a sperm are not that different. They're both forms of life. When they meet, yes, now a unique form of life has started. But there's nobody home. So Nevaeh had to die. I'm sorry. Jason is live. I'm sorry you're wrong. I don't know if you're saying wrong to me or if you're saying wrong to the comment from BCSE 30, but either way, I'm glad you're here. I don't want to scare people away. I'm not here to yell at people. I'm not here to have a debate, really. I'm just here to share a little bit of science. And I see I'm hitting my 90-minute mark, so I'm going to go ahead and we got to get today's homework done. We haven't even done our homework yet. Let's take a look at some charts over here. I've been a psychologist for 30 years, and I'm also a filmmaker and a coffee addict. And I just went bowling today at one of Walla Walla, Washington's finest bowleramas, and I bowled a 179. I don't know what that says about me, but I hope it says something good. Let's see. Where did I put my... Oh, it's over here. Okay. Let's pull up a map. I promised to show everybody where the abortion bans are happening. All right, so you can see right here, if you're on YouTube or TikTok, all the green states are states where a woman could be in real trouble if she's having a miscarriage. They all have different ways of vaguely wording the law. You can see the source there. You can look this up for yourselves. You don't have to trust me. 5 states with abortion bans in effect, Arkansas, Idaho, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and South Dakota, do not have any exceptions for the health of the pregnant person, only to preserve life. So those states there have set a higher bar, only to preserve life. So they're not even going to think about the health of the mother. They're just going to say, is she about to die? If she's not dying, then she can't have the abortion. Now, the remaining 15 states Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, South Carolina, West Virginia, looks like Kentucky, Indiana, and what did I miss? I think I got West Virginia, and is that Arizona? Or is that Nevada? I always get those two confused. So those states, other than the 5 I just read. Oh, TikTok's getting mad at me because I'm not on screen. So those states have what they say is an exception for the quote-unquote health of the mother, but it's turning out, because the women that I've mentioned that have died already, that I'm going to continue to mention, and I'm going to show you their pictures here in a minute, they, those women were in Texas and Georgia, right? Texas and Georgia aren't even the 5 worst states. So think about that. My question is, have multiple women already died in those other states and we just don't know about it yet? So keep in mind, the women that I'm mentioning right now, I believe most of them died about 2 years ago when Roe v. Wade was struck down. So if women started dying that quickly, it just stands to reason, unless they've done something to stop it, that more women have died by then. And how many is okay? I say that question with before you continue to ProPublica.org, click continue. Oh, great. Oh, great. I don't want this bullshit on my screen. So the point is, these deaths occurred they started occurring almost immediately after Roe v. Wade was struck down. And those 2 states, Texas and Georgia, are not even the worst states. So how much more damage has already been caused? And I hate to say it in such bleak terms, but how many young women have already died? Otherwise healthy young women, like Amber, like Candy, like Nevaeh, like Joselee, and like Portia, how many of those women have died already and we don't even know about it? And men, do you want to live in a society where women are treated that way? Because I don't. I don't want to be a participant in ignoring what I consider to be like I don't want to offend religious people, but religion has gone too far. And now you're killing young women because of fanciful religious beliefs that a fetus is a full-grown person, and they're not. They're not. I'm sorry. But let me show you some pictures of the young women who have paid the price, and then I got to get off the air because I've been on too long, people. I've been on too long. And there might be a young whippersnapper taking over after I get off the air. And this young whippersnapper who just wandered in the studio doesn't even know that I'm listening to Dronescape number 8 in my headset. Zonescape. It's a Dronescape. All right, let me pull up an article. I'm going to leave the music on. I hope this TikTok's getting mad at me because if it doesn't see like what it thinks is a real person, it thinks I'm some sort of, I don't know what it thinks I am. The robot probably thinks I'm another robot. So I hope this counts as me being on screen. And I hope you'll ask me any questions you have, and I'll try to, I really do want this to be like a late night cable access TV show that you listen to while you're falling asleep. And the Dronescapes definitely help in that regard. Well, I'm sorry to say, it looks like we've got a new. This just happened 2 days ago. It looks like December 13th. A story was posted at 5 a.m. I'm going to read it with you. And I just want to say this is what I'm talking about. Women will keep dying. They really will. Let's read this story. It looks like a woman in the Coast Guard may have almost died. So that's the good news. She didn't die, but it sounds like they must have almost lost her. But let's look at the details. From ProPublica, December 13th, 5 a.m. Aaron Edwards for ProPublica and Robin Fields. And if you're just listening, there's a picture, almost looks like a Polaroid of a sonogram. The title is "A Coast Guard Commander Miscarried and She Nearly Died." She nearly died after being denied care. And what I'm starting to see in a lot of these cases, let's see if it holds true for this story. The delay is what seems to kill these young women. It's like they're making them wait. Like Nevaeh didn't even survive 24 hours. So let's see how this woman did. By the way, if you click on any of these stories on ProPublica, I don't work for them. They're not paying me to say this. I'd be happy to represent them or on the Brother Seamus Show. But you can listen to the article, and it'll also link you to the other articles of the young women who died. So here we go. ProPublica is a nonprofit newsroom that investigates abuses of power. The night the EMTs carried Elizabeth Nakagawa from her home, bleeding and in pain, the tarp they had wrapped her in reminded her of a body bag. Nakagawa, 39, is a Coast Guard commander, stoic, methodical, and engineer by trade. But as they maneuvered her past her young daughter's bedroom, down the narrow steps and into the ambulance, she felt a stab of fear. She might never see her girls again. Boy, that hits you where you live. Then came a blast of anger. She'd been treated for a miscarriage before. She knew her life never should have been in danger. Earlier that day, April 3rd, 2023, Nakagawa had been scheduled to have a surgical procedure called a DNC, or dilation and curettage, to remove fetal tissue after losing a very wanted pregnancy. You hear that? They had to remove the fetal tissue after losing a very wanted pregnancy. But that morning she was told the surgery had been canceled because TRICARE, the military's health insurance plan, refused to pay for it. While her doctor appealed, Nakagawa waited. Then the cramps and bleeding began. In recent months, ProPublica and other media outlets have told the stories of women who died or nearly died. And you can tell, I hope if you're watching, you can see there are links to these other stories. This is real, people. This is not a drill. This is real. We're killing women in 2024, or in this case, Ms. Nakagawa's, it looks like she survived, thankfully. But in recent months, ProPublica and other media outlets have told the stories of women who died or nearly died when state abortion restrictions imposed after the Supreme Court's 2022 Dobbs decision, that's the one that took away Roe versus Wade, it impeded them from getting critical care. Not long before Roe v. Wade was overturned, military service members and their families have faced strict limits on abortion services, which are commonly used to resolve miscarriages. Under a decades-old federal law, the military is prohibited from paying for abortions. You hear that? They're prohibited from paying for abortions except in case of rape, incest, and to save the life of the mother. This applies even to service members based in states where abortion is legal. Well, that's a fine how do you do. Nakagawa lives Ms. Nakagawa lives in Sonoma County, California. There's also no exception for catastrophic or fetal anomalies. In such cases, service members either have to pay out of pocket for abortions or carry to term fetuses that won't survive outside the womb. Wow. Okay. TRICARE does allow abortions in cases like Nakagawa's in which the fetus has no heartbeat, but even then, some doctors who treat military service members say that TRICARE requires more documentation and takes longer to approve these procedures than other insurers, putting women at risk. It's keep in mind, it's the delay that ends up killing these women, or almost killing them in Nakagawa's case. There definitely have been cases where our TRICARE patients have required emergency services, emergency DNC procedures, blood transfusion, things that have been critical to life-saving care because their procedure had yet to occur, said Dr. Lauren Robertson, an OBGYN who has served military members and their spouses in San Diego for more than a decade. It just feels very unnecessary. Since the Dobbs decision, abortion care for service members seems to be coming under heightened scrutiny, said retired Rear Admiral Dana Thomas, who was until recently the Coast Guard's chief medical officer and advocated for Nakagawa. Good for you, Rear Admiral. Trust me, post Roe versus Wade, I'm sure people felt there was much more of a spotlight. I think they were more guarded after June of 22. So there you go. That's part of it too, is they make women wait, and the way they do it is by, I would call it intimidation, political intimidation, threats of going to prison, threats of prosecution. Nobody wants to be prosecuted. And you may say that you're saving the life of a mother, but what if the state prosecutor wants to make a name for himself and says, oh, she didn't really need that miscarriage, or she didn't really need that abortion. After being rushed to the emergency room, Nakagawa hemorrhaged for 4 more hours before doctors performed the surgery TRICARE had refused to authorize. Later, TRICARE and Defense Department officials would all agree that Nakagawa should have been treated as her doctor recommended, and said they told her they'd taken steps to prevent future mistakes. Okay, now that's the first time I've seen in any of these stories where a hospital or an insurance company admitted to what they had done. Sounds like they're scared of getting sued. But her experience, which doctors say nearly cost Nakagawa's life, laid bare the challenges service members have long faced in obtaining reproductive health care. It raises questions about whether the Supreme Court's ruling has created a chilling effect. It has. That's my, I threw that part in. That has further complicated access to these procedures. Officials at the Defense Health Agency, which runs the military health system, including TRICARE, did not respond to specific questions from ProPublica, but they provided a statement saying its policies haven't budged. Here's the statement. There have not been any changes to TRICARE coverage or documentation requirements for medically necessary care of DNCs following the Supreme Court Dobbs decision. Medically necessary care was and continues to be covered. So they're trying to act tough here. The agency declined to answer questions about Nakagawa, saying that as a matter of practice, it doesn't discuss individual beneficiaries' care. ProPublica is involved in an unrelated public records lawsuit with the DHA. So they're probably trying to get more info. As a senior officer, Nakagawa felt duty-bound to press for answers about what happened to her. The abortion policy, in theory, is supposed to protect life, and in my case, it did the opposite. Ooh, that's a good way to put it. It almost led to my children not having a mother. After the Supreme Court upended Roe because of Donald Trump's appointments to the Supreme Court, the Biden administration took steps to reassure service members that their access to reproductive care would remain unaffected by a wave of state abortion bans. Those are the trigger laws that I mentioned before, that as soon as Roe versus Wade went away, a bunch of states had automatic laws to stop any and all kinds of abortion and, waiting periods and whatnot. An October 2022 memo from the Defense Secretary, Lord Austin, pledged to facilitate leave for service members seeking abortions that were not covered by TRICARE and to pay for travel if it wasn't available nearby. It also emphasized that these procedures would be consistent with applicable federal law. The statute barring the Defense Department from paying for most abortion goes back to 1985 and mirrors language in what's called the Hyde Amendment, named for its author, Henry Hyde, a Republican rep from Illinois. Congress has attached the amendment to spending bills since the late 70s to prohibit the use of federal funds for abortion. So the Henry Hyde Amendment is because, again, too much religious power affecting public institutions. With Congress in control of military spending, abortion care is highly politicized, said Kellyanne Hunter, a Marine Corps combat veteran and senior political scientist at Rand Corp. There's been a lot of backlash and a lot of scrutiny and a lot of congressional disapproval as to how the DoD is engaged with abortion care, D&C care, and the like. About 9.5 million people, including active duty service members and their families, as well as military retirees and their dependents, rely on TRICARE for health services. Women make up a growing portion of the active duty force, more than 17%. They also leave the military at higher rates. Research by Rand and others suggests the military's reproductive health policies may make it harder to recruit and retain them. Well, you can bet your ass if they hear about Ms. Nakagawa's experience. Dr. Tony Marengo, a former Navy OBGYN, said she left the service in part because she felt unable to provide patients with appropriate care. Many of them only discovered how sharply TRICARE's policy curtailed access to procedures like D&Cs when they needed them. So that's kind of spooky. They couldn't see it coming. Until you need it, you don't know how badly it's going to be controlled. It was like living in a pre-Roe world, said Marengo, now chief medical officer at Planned Parenthood of the Pacific Southwest. The effects have been felt for decades. In 1994, Maureen Griffin and her then-husband, a captain in the Air National Guard, ended her pregnancy after learning their baby had anencephaly, a fatal birth defect. They found out the military considered her induced labor and abortion when she got a phone call from a bill collector for the hospital seeking thousands of dollars in reimbursement for the procedure. I said, we have full coverage. My husband's in the military. They said they don't pay for abortions. Griffin recalled, we were completely blindsided. I mean, no one called it an abortion. It was a horrible tragedy. How do you like that? Adding insult to tragedy. Griffin, then known as Maureen Brittle, was so outraged that she sued the Defense Department, winning a judgment in federal district court in 2002. 2 years later, an appeals court reversed the decision, upholding the Defense Department's refusal to cover abortions. 25 years after Griffin's pregnancy, Samantha Babcock spent the equivalent of 7 paychecks to fly home from her husband's Air Force base in Okinawa, Japan, for an abortion TRICARE wouldn't cover. She was 5 months pregnant when the doctors told her that her fetus had multiple abnormalities and wasn't viable. The grief was crushing. See, the thing here I want to point out is a lot of these women need the D&C or they need the abortion or whatever procedure, and they did not want it. Something went wrong. The grief was crushing. Then she found out that by law, the military couldn't perform or pay for a surgery called a D&E, a dilation and evacuation, which her military doctors agreed was the safest option. She and her family paid $14,000, most of it in plane tickets, with help from a GoFundMe so that she could go home to Portland, Oregon to get the procedure. She still can't believe such a step was necessary. I assumed TRICARE had my best interest at heart, she said. If the condition was fatal, why wouldn't they help me? let's stop there. It's a rather long article, but you can read it yourself on ProPublica. I hope you will. I hope you'll. There's Dana Thomas, retired Rear Admiral. So I think that's it. That's it for the Brother Seamus Show for today, y'all. Thanks for calling. Nobody called, but I have to say that. And I hope you'll at least think about these things. You may not agree with me, and that's okay. But have a good day, everybody.